So yeah, and Billy is on, and he is prepared.
Good.
Yep.
So we're an experiment. Billy is, I think you've met him. We're doing a complex integration of a couple projects together in Israel. He is the department head of a very large college there, and he runs the innovation marketing or marketing innovation. I probably don't do it justice. And I've asked him to try to take what he's heard so far and maybe organize it in in a more academically easy to grasp way. And this is the first time he's done it, so we'll see how it executes. And I have he more than the time I have allocated, so it's going to be a little bit of a difficulty. But with half an hour, I'd like to have him try his best to get it done in a half hour. If he doesn't, we'll have to continue it later because we have a lot of PowerPoint slides we have to get through today, and I have to get a little bit of feedback later. But if you're ready, Billy, and you can nail it in 30, it's great. If you can't, we'll stop at 30 just because I have to move on with some of the other content. But I'm eager to hear how you recontextualize what I've been trying to convey for the last 7, or is this the 8th month or the 8th week, Brian? I want to say month.
I believe it is. Yes.
Yeah, good. And we still have 5 more weeks to come, but I think we made great progress. But that's my perception. I want to see if you are if you are introduced to the methodology, different point of view, maybe that will pervade your brain in a different way. I just want to see everybody do something meaningful with this for themselves, for their business, for their career, whatever you're going to do. So, Billy, if you can nail it in 30, it's great. And if you can't, we'll stop at 30 and we'll continue it next week because I just have to get through a deck. So we can start if you're ready.
Yes, I'm ready. So I'll share my screen.
Okay, I'm going to subordinate. Oh, I never came on. Hello. I'm going to come off.
Jay.
All right, so go ahead, Billy, and I will interrupt occasionally, but let's hear how you interpret this. It'll be fascinating.
Okay. All right.
And I appreciate all you've done. You put a lot of work into it.
Thank you. All right. So, hi, everybody. In one of our last Zoom meetings with Jay, we went over the different things that he discussed in the course. So he talked about the benefits of deal making and 43 ways to maximize and enhance deal making, etc. And then I said, Jay, I think that there is one aspect that we haven't covered, and I would like to talk about it if it's okay with you. And I think that one of the things that we need to take into consideration, which could either make or break a deal or a partnership with anybody, is whether our values are aligned. And this relates to the relational capital that Jay spoke about, specifically using other people's brands. So that's what I wanted to focus on today, a little bit about branding and how we can assess whether our potential partner is the best partner for us. All right. So 1 second. Okay. So a few learning outcomes. I've tried to make this as organized as possible. So we will talk about rules of thumb for choosing the best partner, a co-brand. Each and every one of us is a brand, and we create our brand by our level of professionalism and the quality service that we provide and our character. And we should always strive to be the best possible brand. And we'll talk about this, how we can create a brand, but it's generally created by the content that we put up on our social media and the way we dress and the way we present ourselves to customers. So the rules of thumb for choosing the best partner for you or your clients, okay? And taking into consideration the values of our potential partner. I will also provide easy to apply research instruments that anybody can apply to assess the brand equity. I will talk about this in a minute. Either you or your client may be considering partnering with. And we'll be focusing on brand equity for two reasons. So as I mentioned earlier, because it relates to the application of relational capital that Jay has spoken about using other people's brands, and high brand equity. Brand equity is something that can increase our market share, our ability to charge premium prices, and can provide a strong competitive advantage. Okay. Second. Stop something with my, sorry, a minute. Yeah, okay. So why are we focusing on brand equity and co-branding? So as I mentioned before, the relational capital and the brand equity part, look at the third point, which I haven't spoken about so far. Co-branding, which we will go into detail in a few minutes, is a marketing strategy where two or more brands, you and a potential partner, collaborate to leverage the strengths, reputations, and customer bases of each brand involved in order to increase your market share. So it's one of the leverages that we haven't spoken about in this session, and I think you will get a lot of value from this. Regarding values, so you're probably wondering, well, Vili, you're saying that our values should be aligned. Where do I get this from? So today I just Googled, for example, Target values, and I got the values of Target. All right. And then I also Googled Starbucks. And I was saying, okay, they'll probably say, well, Vili, these are huge brands. Okay. But what about somebody who's SMB? Well, I also found some family doctor, and his website presents his mission, and core values. And I also found some law firm, which I don't know, but it also has its values. So it's easy to find. And if you're not sure what the values of your potential partner are, if it's not on the website, you can sit with your potential partner and ask a few questions. I can share with Brian or Jay a list of questions that I ask, and you can just sit with your potential partner and make sure that your values are aligned. Okay? I'd like to give you an example, actually 3 or 4 examples of successful partnerships because of optimal value alignment. One of the famous ones is between Nike and Apple. Their collaboration was to integrate the Apple's technology. It was the iPod Sports Kit with Nike's sportswear, the Nike Plus. Really phenomenal because their shared values, as you can see on the screen, is innovation, health, and fitness. They share 3 values that made this collaboration so successful. Another one, Starbucks and Conservation International. So the whole idea was for the two parties to come together and promote sustainable coffee farming practices through the coffee and farmer equity practices. Their shared values are sustainability, environmental responsibility, and ethical sourcing. And that's why it's just phenomenal. Coca-Cola and the World Wildlife Fund, if you heard, they joined forces back in 2007 to ensure access to quality water for communities, nature, and businesses around the world. And it's really phenomenal. And their shared values are water stewardship, sustainability, and environmental conservation. All right, and there's another one between Adidas and Parley. So let's talk about brands. When I talk about branding, I ask the audience, what is a brand? So usually the answers that I get are, well, it's a name. It's any product that is well known. I get all sorts of answers. Some of them are more accurate. Some of them are less accurate. And I think the best way to understand what is a brand is by distinguishing it from a product. So if you look at this quote, this is how I define a brand. A product is made in a factory. A brand is created in customers' minds. I think this is the big thing that distinguishes between brands and products. First of all, us as customers, we usually don't buy products, we buy brands because they are usually an extension of our identities. We have some emotional connection to them. It's reminiscent of our, sitting with our families when we were small and having breakfast, and that's why we buy these brands. So either consciously or subconsciously, it has something to do with our mindset, okay? So a brand is comprised of intangible and tangible elements. When we're talking about intangible elements, it's an extension of our identities. That's why we buy a particular brand or not, or other brands. it evokes emotion. And one of the biggest motivations to buy brands today, and this is something that I can see from my from my research on consumer behavior, it's either to maintain a status, achieve some status which is higher than the one that we have now, or to avoid a particular status, okay? The tangible part, which is manifested in the logo, name, colors, and shapes, the colors and shapes specifically, mostly subconsciously, determine how we relate to the brand. So if you have a particular logo to your business, look at the colors, look at the shapes. We can sit on this if you would like and analyze them. You know, if you use the color red, then it shows something related to force or power. And if it's green, it's nature. And if it's brown, it's related to land. Okay, so you have to make sure that the colors and shape are aligned with your business goals. What is co-branding? And this is what I want to focus on. So it's a marketing strategy in which two or more brands collaborate to create a product, service, or promotional campaign that leverages each brand's strengths, reputation, and customer bases. All right. So this is something that we spoke about, and I would like you to look at the next slide, which distinguishes between three types of brands. A brand can be a product. It could be a persona, me, you, Alan, Brian, and it can also be places, New York, Florida, Barcelona. These are brands. Okay, so we're focusing on personas, sorry. A brand equity is the added value given to goods or services through branding, which may be reflected in the way consumers think, feel, and act with respect to the brand. And this is something I would like you to focus on when assessing the feasibility of a partnership with a brand, with another person. Brand equity is comprised of 7 components. All right, let's look at the top part. You see that there are 5 components which have arrows coming into brand equity: brand associations, brand loyalty, brand awareness, perceived quality. Sorry. Oh, sorry. Okay. Sorry. Something. Okay. Perceived quality and other proprietary assets. The arrows going into brand equity means that these elements are correlated and are causes, determinants of brand equity. The arrows coming out are the consequences of brand equity. So there are 2 possible consequences on the value to the customer and the value to the firm. All right. So I will go over each one of the elements in turn. Let's start with brand associations. Brand associations refer to the mental connections the consumers make between a brand and its attributes, benefits, values, and experiences. This may sound very theoretical, so I have 6 possible items that you can use to evaluate the associations related to the brand that you want to partner with. So for example, you can ask potential customers, okay, what words or phrases come to mind when you think of Nike, Adidas, okay, and then they'll give you 4 or 5, okay, or you can ask, to what extent do you agree that brand X, Adidas, Nike, Starbucks, is associated with the following attributes, okay, and then agree or disagree. I don't like item number 2, and I'll tell you why. From a scientific perspective, it's considered to be a deterministic item. I don't want to put words into my consumer's mouth. I want this to be an open-ended question, and I want to hear this from them. Okay, so the second question I wouldn't recommend, but the third one, what are the benefits you associated with using brand X? What comes to mind when you see the brand logo? So essentially, in one sentence, brands are personalities. If I would ask you what comes to mind when you hear the word Nike, you would give me one set of attributes or associations. When I ask you what comes to mind when you hear the word Reebok, completely different set of associations would come to mind. So it's like 2 different individuals with 2 different lifestyles, 2 different ways of living their lives, okay? Brand loyalty reflects a customer's consistent preference for one brand over others, leading to repeated purchases and resistance to switching to competitors. This is the ultimate objective of every business. So what kind of questions can you ask the customers of your potential partner to assess brand loyalty? How often do you purchase the brand compared to other brands? To what extent do you prefer brand X over other brands in the same category? All right, so these are, I think, very practical questions that you can ask. Another aspect of brand equity is brand awareness. Brand awareness refers to the extent to which consumers recognize and recall a brand under different conditions. So how do we measure that? Have you ever heard of that guy before, that service provider before? Which of the following brands do you recognize? And you can give a list and just ask and just try to understand which ones are recognized more. When you think of soft beverages, life insurance, okay, certain product category, which brands come to mind first? All right, you want to make sure that you are what is called the top of mind. You want to be the first one that is mentioned, or maybe the second or third, but certainly not the 10th one. Usually when consumers make decisions, they have what is called a consideration set. And they take into consideration usually 4 or 5 brands. So you want to be one of the 4 or 5 that are mentioned by consumers. Perceived quality, which is also an element of brand equity, is a critical aspect of brand equity and consumer satisfaction, reflecting the consumer's judgment about a product's overall excellence or superiority. So how do we measure this? Very simple. How would you rate the overall quality of Adidas compared to other brands? 1, very poor quality. 7, very high quality. By the way, just that you know, usually we use what are called Likert scales, which range from 1 to 5 or 1 to 7. Okay, so I would always use Likert scales. How consistently high is the quality of the products of brand Y? 1, very inconsistent. 7, very consistent. Okay? Now, something for your general knowledge, according to research, and this is something that we can see in all industries, there are 2 general determinants of perceived quality. It's the made-in label, if it's a physical product, but in general, the price of the product or service determines the perceived quality. There are 2 types of qualities, okay? You have to remember this: objective quality and subjective quality. And when we're talking about perceived quality, we're talking about perceived quality, which is the most important. How do our customers perceive the quality of our service? So if you want to be perceived as a high-level service provider, you cannot charge lower prices. This will lead to cognitive dissonance, which usually will lead to consumers to say, well, if the price is low, then the service and the quality is probably very low. Okay? Perceived quality is also important for 5 reasons. First of all, you can charge a price premium. If you're perceived to be high quality, you can charge 20, 30, 40, 100% more than the average. It's a differentiator, and it can help you with the unique selling proposition. It's a reason to buy from you and not from your competition. It can engender a lot of interest from different people who would want to partner with you. Oh, Carol, you know, she's such a good consultant. She's well known. I want to partner with her. I want to form collaborations with her. Okay. And it also enables you to increase your profits and grow your business by adapting a strategy which is called brand extensions. So let's say that now I'm in the life insurance business, and tomorrow I want to go into car insurance. Because I'm well known and I'm perceived to be a high quality service provider, people will say, well, Vili is a very high quality life insurance agent. So if he is now offering car insurance, I can assume that he will also be a good provider of this service. This is what is called the halo effect. Okay, so there are a lot of benefits to being perceived high quality. The 5th element in the brand equity is proprietary assets. Examples like IP, patents, copyrights, trademarks, and software. All right. So if all of these elements in the brand equity are high, your potential partner has high brand awareness, high brand loyalty, very positive associations. It means that this is a partner that you should seriously consider partnering with. Okay. Now, regarding the consequences of brand equity, there's value to the firm, to you as a business person, premium pricing that you can charge, greater partnership opportunities with retailers, wholesalers, distributors, greater customer satisfaction, and most importantly, is barrier to market entry. The more loyal customers you have, the more difficult it will be for new players to enter the market and steal your customers.
And
The value to
Billy, excuse me 1 second. I have a comment, but also a suggestion. I think it's you distorting. I never can tell whether it's you or I. Are you all hearing some of the distortion, Brian?
I'm hearing some distortion, Jay.
Yeah, I don't know if there's anything you can do because your message is actually quite interesting. And I don't know if you can get closer or if it's just the internet service. You distort about maybe every sixth word. And it's very interesting. But I think if you can also spin this, because you're giving people a secondary education on what they have to make their brand look like, or the clients they are representing, or the products or services. And I think that it should be a reality check for them as well. And I think that's very interesting. I'm actually enjoying this. Continue, but you are distorting a little bit.
Thank you. Okay, can you hear me clearly now?
Right this moment, yes.
Okay, if you don't, just let me know, okay? And I will
So-
try to
All right.
fix, okay.
A little bit too, as you're talking, so interesting, but I'm a fanatic about making sure people understand what I'll call the double valve. It goes different ways when you're trying to interpret something, and that as you're trying to align, you got to make sure that your message to market, if you get that alignment with a partner, is going to be perceived correctly for your audience.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So there are some examples of failed relationships because there was no alignment. So there's one between Target and Neiman Marcus in 2012. They launched a holiday collection featuring items from high-end designers. Obviously, two different values, and this was really not successful. Another one between Madonna, which is a brand, a persona, and Pepsi. Back in 1989, they partnered with Madonna for a major advertising campaign that featured her song Like a Prayer. And I think you know the story. It was really a complete failure. Okay, so is there anything that you missed and you want me to repeat? Because I wanted to leave
But
some
Billy,
time
I'll tell you
for...
what, Billy, I like this. If you want to go a little longer and you want to embellish it, I will enjoy that, because I think this is interesting, as long as everybody understands that this has a multitude of implications. It has implications if it's your company, your product, service, with whoever you're aligning with, whether you're trying to take your product or service through their audience, their product or service to yours. But you have to also realize what Billy is saying, that you have to do reality check and say, does my product or service, I am, as he said, the product or service, do I conform to these attributes? Do I really connect? Do I personify this? It's a very provocative. I actually like it. So if you want to go another 10 or so, it's fine with me.
Okay, so I maybe we can do a short Q&A, and then I will go into details into things that maybe were not understood. So I just want to make sure that you got the main idea, that before you partner with anybody, you should check the brand equity of that potential partner. You should check whether he or she has brand loyalty, positive brand associations, brand awareness. Are people aware of this service provider? Do people know him? What is the perceived quality of the service provided by that provider? And whether he or she has any proprietary assets that you can benefit from. Okay? If all of this is positive, there is high brand loyalty, very positive brand associations, great brand awareness, perceived quality, then I would say go with the deal. Now, when I went over the sample questions here, sorry. Okay, I just want to make sure that these are the kind of questions that you can ask the audience or the customers of your potential partner and to see what they think about him. Okay, I just want to make sure that this is clear. Okay, and it doesn't have to be a lot of people. It could be 10, 20 people. You know, you go to one of his or her customers and you say, you know, well, this is not this one, but here, brand loyalty. How often do you purchase? Can you give me the name of a company that you were considering partnering with, and we can try to apply this?
You're distorting again, unfortunately. I don't know what's the conversation, but it's getting a little bit more acute. I don't know if you can hear yourself closer, or I don't know what, if anything, you can do, because if you turn off your video, you'll lose your screen probably. So it's I mean, it's very, what you're saying is very powerful, but if it's distorted, it compromises it. So I don't know what we can do, but see if you can figure anything out.
Well, one thing I heard from you, Billy, is it sounds like one thing we can do with potential partners in a deal or in an offer is look at how their clients are perceiving their brand. And I thought that was a very interesting insight.
Yeah,
Cool.
exactly. That I was trying to say. Because if you want to partner with somebody, are you hearing me okay now?
Right now we do, yes.
Okay, so if you want to partner with somebody who is not perceived well by his audience, he has bad associations associated with him, and no brand loyalty and no proprietary assets, you really have nothing to benefit from, then I would say, you know, try to look for somebody else. Exactly.
And what you said in the beginning, and I apologize for monopolizing, is that the value of a brand is people are looking to improve their status or maintain their status. So if I go into partnership with someone that could be a liability and make me look bad, then I should avoid that situation.
Absolutely. 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 Because if you look at yourself as a brand and you're considering aligning with somebody, you want to make sure that you will benefit and it would not be a detriment to your own brand. Otherwise, you might lose customers, you might lose your value. So it could really be a deal breaker. All right. So you want to make sure that it's somebody that you can benefit somehow from the relationship. So if it's somebody that doesn't have values that align with you, let's say regarding sustainability, okay, let's say that you are strong on sustainability. If you partner with somebody who couldn't care less about sustainability, it can chase your customers away from you. You need to remember that the Y generation consumers, these are people who were born anywhere between 1980 and 1999. And the Z generation consumers, who are people who were born between 2000 and 2009, they're super conscious of the activities that companies do beyond selling. All right, they're willing to pay a premium for products that they buy from companies that pursue some agenda, social agenda, you know, ecology, sustainability, etc. If you are somebody who is not aligned with their values, they will run away from you, and they will not only run away from you, they will spread a lot of negative word of mouth about you. Scott, right? So
Billy, you had brought up the example of Target and Neiman Marcus. Those two stores have a price disparity. How would you address partnering with a company that may be either more upmarket or downmarket?
Yeah, well, that's one of the reasons why their partnership failed, is just because of that. It's a problem. The partnership was a possible benefit to Target. All right, because it could have benefited from upscale customers, but it's definitely something that can only harm Neiman Marcus, because you can imagine the people who come to Neiman Marcus from a particular social standing, they go to Target and all of a sudden they find products from Neiman Marcus. It really lowers the value of the product. If you look at luxury brands like Louis Vuitton, they never have sales on Black Friday. they will burn their stock, but they will never reduce a dollar because they know that once they do that, they will lose a lot of customers and a lot of profits.
Thank you for that.
Sure. All right, any more questions?
Does anyone have an insight or a question? Because sometimes how you interpret something is just as valuable as a question.
And while you're waiting for this, Billy, I have an idea. And when you're done, I'm liking this. I want you to do a spin on not your deck, but you've been observing, you've been watching, you've been experiencing the majority, or maybe you've gotten to experience all these 7 or 8 sessions. I would love, and it's I wasn't thinking about this before, but I think it'd be very interesting as a sort of a Rorschach to have you try to interpret in a more organized way what you think the last 6, 7, 8 sessions really mean, and what you would hope that somebody would take away from it, not just intellectually, but transact, what they would able to do with it. Because I think one of my great challenges, and we had a really long discussion, I feel bad I didn't program you. We did one of our $25,000 programs the last 2 days. It was really interesting. We did a reduced deal for a group of Tony Robbins people. And we got into lengthy discussions about the fact that we think we are very clearly communicating. I do. And then if you look at a transcription of your comment or your message, it's abstract. It's very, even though your brain is seeing all this cohesive vision of what you're trying to express from your own experiential background, it doesn't always come off that way. And I always strive to help people see how many ways they can capitalize and not be overwhelmed by it. And Brian, by the way, I think we should find that we never played the Tony Robbins for these, did we?
For this group, I don't believe we have.
Maybe we will at the end of today, because
Okay.
if you get too many options, then you have no options because your brain sort of gets.
We did play the 3 to 5.
We did play it already?
Okay.
Yes. I think it was on 2 or maybe 3, but it is on there.
Okay, then we don't have to do it. But if we did, then that's a good guidepost, because my job is I don't believe, Billy, and I want you to maybe address it. I don't believe that one size fits all in any endeavor. You know, there may be macro formulaic stuff, but I think every situation is a unique sort of organism. And the more arrows in your quiver, the more probability you'll be able to successfully, ethically exploit opportunity. But I think that can be overwhelming to people who are historically used to more linear action. I'd love to hear your interpretation. I think it's interesting, would be very valuable, because Billy comes from a world where they're preparing not just typical young adult. We sort of reflect upon as a. I'm sorry, I was very tired last night. I went massive wasting after my day event, so I'm a little bit elusive for a few minutes. But we think of a college student as somebody who's 18, 19. In Israel, college students have already been in the army for 2 or 3 or 4 years, whatever the duration is, men and women. So you've got a more mature audience that are really ready to go into the business world. And Billy's job is to help them be successful. And part of success is clearly understanding sort of your success marching orders. So it'd be very interesting to hear how you would explain, articulate, recontextualize what I've been trying to do, because I acknowledge that I have a very broad number of things. I may confuse. I have no pride. Capitalize on the power of this.
Okay. So how about if I prepare something? You know, I like to be very organized and structured. So if I prepare something for next week, would that be okay?
It is okay, but I'm actually trying to see how you do in the moment too. I just wonder, yeah, you can do something next week, but why don't you just do a little free form for a couple of minutes? Let's hear what your thinking is. I mean, if your life depended on it, you had to explain in whatever it is, 5 minutes, 7 minutes, 10 minutes, 12 seconds, what you think the last seven sessions were all about. What would you say?
By the way, is it okay if I respond to a few questions regarding my lecture, Brian? There were a
You
few
can respond to all of them. Yeah, go ahead. I love
Okay.
interviews.
Yeah. Can you pick a few questions for me? I just missed them. There are a few questions, Brian. Can you see something about politics? I saw, I think.
Yeah. So, what's the frame of politics? How does that help or hurt, potentially hurt a brand when you're talking about a presidential or just make it politics in general? What does talking about politics or political issues do for a brand? What's the upside downside on that?
Yeah, well, there were several situations where companies went into they commented about different political issues, and they actually got burned. So I think that the best thing to do is just to be neutral or not to say anything, because regardless of what side you take, there will always be somebody who says, well, this is against my values. You know, why did you say this? Why do you support the Republicans? Why do you support the Democrats? I think that the role of business is to focus on bringing value to customers and stay away from politics. It's a very, very dangerous place to be.
Message heard by the person that posted. The next is how do you find the client or partners why, how do you get and really understand the why of what they do?
How do they understand the why of what they do? I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
the reason why. So kind of like how do you plumb the mindset of a potential partner? What is their why? Why do they do what they do?
Okay, so when you partner with somebody, as I said, there's some information that you can find on the website, but the best thing to do is to sit with the person and try to understand their values, what their business objectives are, what is their vision, what is their mission statement. There's, by the way, a lot of people don't understand the fine difference. There's really a fine line between mission statement and vision. And it's something that we need to clarify. So in general terms, the vision is where I see myself in the future. And the mission statement is why I established my business. Okay, so if we take, for example, the vegan food producers. Okay, so for example, their mission statement would be to provide an alternative to people who avoid meat. That would be the mission statement. Okay, and then their vision would be something like to be the #1 provider of vegan alternative food to people who refrain from eating meat for different reasons, whether for health reasons or for ethical reasons. So it's just really sitting down and trying to get through. And by the way, as I said, Brian, I will send you, if you send me your email, a list of questions that you can ask your potential partner in order to try to elicit the values and really assess whether this is a partnership that can work.
And
Right.
Billy, excuse me for interrupting. I will do it only if I think there's a useful intervention. I think that it's very worthwhile for everybody who's listening to, watching you, to ask themselves, not necessarily right now, but in some very reflective time, do I even know my mission if I'm going to do this, or the mission of my company or my career goal? And then number two, if the answer is no, can I get it clarity? Because I think that's a fuel that will really propel greater achievement. And secondly, do you have a vision? Because I have a really belief system that I've never talked about, I don't think, on this group, Billy, but there's some research that I saw ago that something like 95% of all SMBs never really achieve their end goal. It's really because they don't have end goals. They have very abstract aspirations. I want to make $1 million a year. I want to double my business every 3 or 6 years, but they don't have any mechanism to reverse engineer it, hedge strategies. And then they're frustrated at the end of their career when they haven't accomplished anywhere close to what they wanted. And I think that you can't accomplish what you want if it's not concrete, and you can't accomplish it if you don't have a clarified action. You can't accomplish it constantly, monitor, measure, and adjust, nor don't have a hedge strategy.
Absolutely. And that's why I think that if every business, even an SMB, would have taken the brand equity model that I just presented and would say, okay, what are my goals regarding brand loyalty? How am I going to achieve it? What do I need to do in order to achieve brand loyalty within a year or two? Okay. How do I work on my brand associations? What do customers think about me? You know, a lot of businesses, surprisingly, don't know and don't even seem to care what their customers really think about them. Now, one of the pitfalls for many businesses is to completely ignore the thing with associations. And let's just say, let's let things develop as they develop. And then you fall into the danger of people developing associations that you had no intentions. And that's why from day one, you must be the one who designs and make sure and make sure that the positioning that you want to acquire in the market is based on your goals. All right, meaning every post that you have on Facebook, every influencer that you choose, every message that you post, whether in your store or anywhere, okay, it has to be consistent, and there has to be a lot of thought about, okay, does this create the association that I want to create? I want to be perceived as a high quality service provider. I want to be perceived as a reliable individual. Does it achieve that? Okay. And the consistency has to come into play not only in the messages, but also in the brand logo that is used. By the way, I see many times that the brand logo on the website is completely different from the brand logo on Facebook. And this completely confuses consumers. And then they start saying, okay, so who is Vili? I can't understand who he is. You know, on Facebook, his logo is blue and black, and on the website, it's red and purple. They pass completely different messages. And then when I come into a store, there are other colors. So you really have to be consistent. I mean, if you look at brands like Starbucks and McDonald's, their message is consistent. Their shops look the same. They use the same colors. And many times when we use influencers, we have to make sure that the influencers, and this is another important point, that the influencers hold values that are consistent with ours. Because if they have completely different values, this will also confuse our customers. And they'll say, okay, so I don't understand. On his website, Vili says that this is his values, but then he brings this influencer, which has completely different values. So who is Vili? Okay, so building your personal brand takes time. And I think that the secret to success is being consistent and planning things ahead. Where do I want to be? How do I want to be positioned in relation to my competition? Okay, and it comes from what you say, how you meet your customers, how you dress, what you say when you respond to emails. Customers pay attention to everything, and many times they will not be able to tell you this consciously, but subconsciously, it definitely has an influence.
Billy, I'm going to ask you a question. Explain to people how your values integrate or don't with your mission and your vision, because I don't think most people really even know what they value. It's very fascinating. We had a very interesting little, and if you don't have it, I'll get it for you. A little challenge we did a bunch of years ago called the Preeminence Greatness Challenge. And I think I asked people, do you even know what you stand for as a business? Why you stand for it? Who you stand for? What standing for it is supposed to mean, look like, how it's articulated, how it's manifested, how you verify that. And most people had no answers.
Yeah. So your values need to be pronounced, or they need to manifest in your mission statement and in your vision. Okay. So what I can do is I can bring a lot of examples, maybe, you know, next time or whenever I have another chance, I can bring a lot of examples of mission statements and visions, but in general,
Very helpful.
yeah.
And to see, there's one other not a caveat, but a fascinating exploration. How congruent are people, companies, products to whatever the mission statement says they are all about, don't you think?
Absolutely. And the greater the gap, the greater the dissatisfaction that consumers would have regarding the company. Look, today customers are very smart. They want to buy from companies that have sustainability policies and they respect the worker rights, etc. So if you say that you respect worker rights and that you care about the environment, but you do completely the opposite, and it's really easy to know today with social media, then consumers are going to be disappointed. So the greater the gap, the worse it's going to be. So it has to be expressed clearly, and you must follow your vision. You must follow the mission statement, and you must make sure that your values are executed by the things that you also do in your company itself, the way you behave towards your customers, the way you behave towards your suppliers. I mean, it's something that has to be not just superficial, because consumers today are very smart. It has to be something that is really rooted in the culture of your company and organization. Because if you have workers who say, well, you know, they wrote in the mission statement that they care about worker rights, but you know how they treat me? I mean, this will spread quickly. Okay, so it's really the best move that you can make is to be consistent and to make sure that you execute this on every level of the organization. And by the way, there are a lot of companies like Nike that many times they do say that they're into sustainability and human rights, but then we heard a lot of cases where, you know, they mistreated their employees and their stock market, the stock price has really plunged. You know, so it has consequences, and companies are aware of this. Are there any other questions, Brian, in the
So I
chat?
thought Carol, you know, is kind of adjacent to what you guys were just talking. She's been putting her values on her homepage on the website, and you know, this is one of those beginnings of that creating the alignment. But I think that what you said is it's not only the messaging, it's the material of how you show up, how you present, how you are experienced by your clients, not just on your website, but also on your LinkedIn, on your social media,
Absolutely.
in your behavior. I mean, there's so many. It's a lot bigger than I was framing it. So you've expanded my frame on this. I think I saw Carol nodding her head. I think she's getting, you know, our heads are expanding from this. This is great.
I can give you an example of an Israeli telecommunications company.
Okay.
They had a very bad reputation because of very poor service. So what they did a couple of years ago, they redesigned their logo. So they call this a rebranding process. But this rebranding process was hollow because the customer service did not really change. So consumers remain dissatisfied. They keep disconnecting. It's losing its market share. So it's really important not just to come out with declarations, we're rebranding, look at our new logo. It's worthless and useless unless it's backed up by real actions.
And Alan just asked one that I think you're going to want to go to the drawing board and come back and address maybe in weeks to come, because it's a deep one. What are some other factors that affect perceived value? Because this is what we all want to know. It's like, how can we enhance how we're perceived by the people we want to be doing business with?
Yeah, so it's the level of our professionalism. All right, that's one. It's the diversity of services that we can provide. Usually, if you provide fewer services, you're perceived to be an expert in your field, and usually you're perceived as a high quality service provider. You know, many times we are lured into providing a lot of services because it's really attractive, you know, increase our income. But the fewer the services that we provide, the better it is, because then we're considered to be expert. You know, it's like if you take my field, for example, right? I'm a researcher in consumer behavior. So I look at some of my colleagues who do research on psychology and sociology, and they're all over the place. So they cannot be perceived as experts. But if you have a researcher who only focuses on consumer behavior from different experts, he or she will be perceived as a higher quality researcher, no doubt about it. Okay, so it's the type of services that you provide, the number of services that you provide, the prices, the way you dress, the way your office is designed. Definitely something that influences the perceived quality. And I'm very curious about luxury consumption. So I read an article recently, and I'll share it with you, about two lawyers. One came into a meeting with a very, I don't know, let's say Toyota, okay? Very simply dressed, very successful, by the way. And his prospect also met another lawyer that came after him, but that lawyer came with a Rolex, with a BMW, with a very, I don't know, Louis Vuitton suit. Who do you think was perceived as a better lawyer, and who got the job? Okay, so many times I mean, if you look at professionals, whether lawyers or doctors, they buy cars which have no logical reason. They buy very expensive cars and shoes and watches, and they do it because they know that when you are dressed with high quality products, you're usually considered to be more successful, because it would create cognitive dissonance. I mean, how could it be that this lawyer comes with such an expensive car and watch and he's not successful? And how can it be that the lawyer that I met before that came with a very simple watch and car, how could he be more successful than you see what I'm trying to say? So the way you dress, the way your office is organized is definitely a determinant of service quality in this case.
So I'm feeling something, and I want to test and see if other people are feeling the same way I am. I feel like I've just eaten at an amazing buffet. I'm feeling a little bit full, and I want some time to digest all that you've had. So if you feel like I do, put an 11 in, because this is a 1 to 10 scale. You can't choose 7. If you are feeling like you need more clarity, if you're confused, give me a number under 5. So if you need some more clarity, put something low. But if you're feeling like me and you are over the top of the 10, put an 11 in the chat, because I'm seeing lots of 11s here. So I think that you've given us a lot to digest. Is there, because you are good at this, you have wrestled with this, you've clearly digested some real brilliance in all of this.
Thank you.
How can we put this into practice? I think if you can leave us with that, like, how can we take all that you've shared with us and begin to operationalize it, put into practice? What's an easy first step that we could do this week?
Okay, so I will send you a list of questions that each and every one of you can use in order to assess the value of your potential partner. I think that could be a good first step. Okay. And then I can also organize questions that you can use to assess each one of the elements in the brand equity, brand loyalty, brand awareness, okay? And in the future, before you partner with anybody, you find a few customers or you find somebody from the target market and you say, what do you say about this brand? Would you buy from him? Okay, have you heard of this brand? All right? I can even organize a document with steps that you can take using the different questions.
Awesome. That would be
Okay.
That's great. And I'd like one thing though, Brian.
Sure.
And I'm going to change the game a little bit. I like the way you've taken this. I'd like people who got something clarified that shifts their business worldview about themselves, their business, or their goal with this program or anything they're doing, to express verbally right now what it is, because I think it's very important to help people when you are seemingly overwhelmed, to help them start with a foundation, with maybe at least one unified a concrete thread they can articulate so they have a starting point. And I'm very interested to see how they interpreted what they just heard so we can calibrate. And sometimes letting people off the hook is not best interest, forcing them to say, okay, I got a lot I don't understand, or I got a lot I got to process, but the one thread, the one concept, the one driving principle that I do get now is blank, and what it means to blank, my career, myself, my business, doing deals, my career, my anything. Because as Billy did say, and it's a whole nother dimension to this, as And when you decide to try to structure any kind of deals, you are a brand, how you are perceived, in terms of certainty, reliability, relevance, authenticity, viability. Those are all determinants that can make or break the success of a deal, notwithstanding the alignment of values and market and brand perception. But I'd be very interested. We have 25, 30 people who just heard you. I'd like to know one overriding insight or perspective or realization or revelation that they got. Let's hear what it means to them. I think it'd be very useful, Brian.
Alan, can you read your text? Because that's awesome.
Yeah, so just summarize that fewer services equals more expert perception is so insightful and so applicable. I really appreciate that, Billy. I really do. It's shifted my world, as they say.
Thank you, Alan.
And Lori, you're taking an action. Tell us what you're doing.
And Brian, I don't like just having volunteers. I think we want everybody. It's improbable that anybody doesn't have some singular thought that overrides the multitude. And I think just asking for volunteers is good, but everyone should have, and forcing benevolently everybody to, I guess I'd call it, to come to grips with their realization helps them get out of so it's the starting block to get them to be able to reconcile all word and what it means. And I think it's very easy to let people off the hook, and that defeats the intention. So it's great to have a couple of volunteers, but I think you just pick people.
Okay. Lori.
Okay, so Scott and I've been texting back and forth. It's been a while since I partnered with a charity, and I think that's really important that I go back to partnering with the charity. And then the other thing I was thinking about my front office, that there's too many options, that it needs to be more brevity with clarity with our options. I own a pest control company. And I think that the front office, in their anxiety of trying to make the sale, is offering way too much too fast. They're not allowing the client to control it. You know what I'm saying? They're not allowing the client to choose that they want it. They're offering too many things at one time. So I want to slow down that process and really listen and test it and see to improve our options, because we are a premium company.
Carlos?
Yes, please excuse my voice. I am a little sick, so came on vacation and got sick, but here is what I got from this. So I have been in like the direct response space, at least like in maybe like a year and a half now, or about 2 years. And big things like clarity. And something that has helped me that is, it's more clarified, but something I've been using instead of LTV, which is like lifetime value, I've been saying like lifetime of the relationship, because that's really what like ultimately the whole thing is. It's like having a relationship with the person. And it's like, if you have a relationship with somebody and you're a Republican and you're voting for Trump, you're not going to be like, screw Kamala. You know what I'm saying? You're not going to tell them that, because they're going to be like, oh, are you my friend? You know what I'm saying? So like it kind of really, I guess it makes sense more in the brand space too, because it's just a lot of times people, they want to feel seen and they want to feel special. So, why would a person or a company basically isolate their audience by saying, hey, we actually don't care about your values anymore. We're going to do whatever else, right? Which when you're doing brand, it's all emotion, because people don't really need the product, I guess. Like people don't really, like when you're doing direct response, it's like a very clear message that somebody's saying, hey, you need help with this thing, I'm going to help you with this thing. When it's branding, it's more like the relationship is already there, it's been established, and it's more like aspirational or something. Like I don't know the right words, if I'm using the right words or not, but like you said, as far as Nike, like somebody that wears those clothes, they want to feel like they're moving fast, they have the idea that, hey, I'm somebody, I'm trying, I'm getting up every morning, I'm working out. And to put like a guy that is probably not put together on there and just like you know, like, you know, it probably would be like, hey, like this isn't what I paid for. I paid for this like motivation and excitement and relationship. I paid for that. I didn't pay for, I guess, you know, Carlos in a Hawaiian shirt, you know what I mean, on vacation, being a little sick. So so that's what I think. Thank you.
Yeah, and when people buy particular brands, they see the brand as a physical extension of their identity. And that's I think that's one of the more fascinating aspects of branding.
Steve is next.
Okay, thanks very much. Three things. Firstly, what I appreciate, Billy, is what you talk about in terms of the importance of recognizing that the brand is me, the brand is us, and there are both conscious and unconscious signaling devices that we can bring into the conversation, conscious in terms of what we talk about, unconscious in terms of the way we look, or, you know, our grooming, what we have on our wrist, and the like. If I can borrow Scott's phrase, if I can yes and to that, there's a sense of what's the energy that we bring as well. And for me, one of the real benefits of the last, 7.5 weeks together is that I think I've been able to become, in conversations with prospects and with partners, become more calm and thoughtful. And it's because of the mindset that Dealmakers has given me, where I can recognize that regardless of what happens in this conversation, I actually have a pipeline that is long enough that the risk of where this conversation goes is actually quite low. And what I've experienced is that with a calmer approach, I'm getting yes more than I was when maybe I was, feeling like I need to land this deal. So, second thing that I picked up from you is the importance of cohesion across all brand collaterals and brand messaging. And that's something that I need to work on. So I'm taking that away as some homework of something that I do as I stand up a new company. So thank you very much for that. And what I also, the third thing, and it's kind of related to that, is recognizing that something that is honed, clean, and understandable is going to be most powerful in connecting with people and helping them to understand what the value is that they will achieve from our interaction and our relationship. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Brian, continue.
Matthew B.
Hi there. Yeah, the thing that struck me was the importance of having congruence between the two brand partnerships. I had to look up the Pepsi Madonna controversy to understand what the illusion was there. But yeah, it makes total sense. Every time that I've done a collaboration when there wasn't that really good harmony, it ended up fighting one or both parties in the butt. Typically, the more premium one suffered the worst consequences, and that makes total sense.
Yeah, a partnership between two brands is just like a partnership between two individuals, husband and wife. If the values don't align, then it's probably not going to last in the long term. So that's why looking at values is really, really important. And many times it's overlooked, but it's one of the things that can really be a deal breaker.
Yeah, I mean, in the past, I put deals together because I was like, oh, this party needs, X, and this other party can supply X. And I thought that was enough. And when I look back at the deals that have failed, it's been a key factor in most of the ones that haven't gone so well.
Yeah, and when we look at partnering with another individual, right? If we're just like two consultants or two self-employed individuals, then the values would be important. But if we were to, let's say, if we were a company or we would own a company, then we'd have to look at a higher level and to make sure that the cultural, the organizational culture also aligns, which is something of a different level and scale.
Carol.
Hi, I'm struck by how important all aspects of how we show up, how we each show up in each business interaction we have, whether it's on the phone or emails, or Billy, you mentioned emails specifically, but all aspects of just, playing the long game and paying attention and not being sloppy. When I think about how thorough we are, how considerate we might be in a conversation, or responsive, or how good a listener, or the kind of follow-up that we end up offering maybe as a gift, as a surprise that pops up in somebody's mailbox the next morning, an additional thought that's useful, whatever. And just how important each and every one of those interactions are in terms of how we show up to our brand, our personal brands. And I'm in the intellectual property business, so I'm not dealing with tangibles at all. So in my world, I think it's even more important than maybe in some others.
Yeah, and even Carol, even things that we sometimes might overlook, like whether our office is organized and how clean and tidy it is, it's something that people may not consciously be aware of, but somewhere subconsciously it doesn't work out for them. They say, well, I expected to come to a very professional place, so everything should be organized, tidy, clean. So all of these things come into play, definitely.
Yep, thank you.
Interesting. Continue, Brian. I like this.
Yeah, it's fun. Ken?
By the way, before you start, I drive people crazy because I want to force you to embrace, acknowledge, and confront what you actually heard and the implications of it, because it's far too easy to move on. And what we're trying to do is layer understanding so that you can do something with the profound knowledge. If anyone's ever seen Kevlar, bulletproof vest, and you tear it open, it's crisscross layer and layer and layer of plastic that it's so strong when you put it all together. And there are, if you think about chutes and ladders, there's bridges that help you get from a map to the finish line. And there's a lot of elements that most of your counterparts would never even reflect on. This is actually very profound if you interpret it the right way, if you activate it. So let's hear it some more.
Kenny, you ready?
Yeah, I was thinking Jay was about to steal my thunder there. I was reflecting on the early comment from Billy that people are generally looking to enhance their status or to avoid a lower status, and combining that with the overall concept of branding as an asset to a company or a commodity. And that represents an opportunity for us as deal makers to help companies enhance or protect their brand.
All right. Next, let's bring up Saul B.
Yes, thank you. This is quite profound for me on two levels. So I've represented many buyers and sellers of companies. I'm a fractional CFO, longtime fractional CFO, and it's shocking that no one considers their partner's values. I've seen so many deals fall apart because they're trying to make the financial work, the financial piece of it work, and they ultimately almost always fell apart because the values were so far different. That's one very profound thought I had. The second profound thought is very personal to me, in that I frankly never really looked at the importance of your other potential partner's values in any relationship, not only business but also personal. It has to be looked. It's part of the equation. I'd go that far. to say that it's an absolute part of the equation that you cannot have any kind of relationship, any kind of business deal. This is my thinking now after being here for a bit. The third thing I want to mention is, and it also carries over into, I'm a longtime practicing martial artist for 27 years. And when I think back about when I look at the types of students that have come and gone through our dojo, the ones whose values are never aligned with our values, respect, consideration, telling the truth, all those very important values. I can look back and see all those students that came through our dojo who did not have those values that we have, that we carry daily with us in our practice, and they've come and gone. So thank you.
That's good. And so I'm going to do an audible for a minute. I want to trial balloon something on you before I take it ready for. Can I make a 4-minute guinea pig?
Sure.
And you might like this if it lands well, and you might cringe if it doesn't. So I'm working on a new theme we're going to do. I do a day with Tony Robbins every year, and it's coming up. And it's for his high-end platinum partners and his Lions, and they pay a lot of money, 85 to 150 grand a year. And so I try every time I do it every year to come up with a unique, new, very powerful theme that takes an understanding of higher performance to basically sublime. And this year we're going to introduce what I created, which is called the business hypergrowth game. It was not the hypergrowth. What's it called, Brian? The hypergrowth
Playbook. There you go. Thanks, Solon.
But it's helping me. But I made a distinction, Sol, and I want to get your perspective on this. And I never thought about this way before, but as an entrepreneur, you have there say there are no ordinary way you could double your wealth in 2 to 3 years from your business or any other option with almost no investment or risk. And yet, if you have a business that is a stable business and it has a certain market multiple, and you're able to significantly increase the rate of above and beyond normality, you're able to significantly increase the profit percentage above normality. And if you are able to reduce the concentration risk, meaning whether it's a concentration of a handful of clients or sources or suppliers or key people, all of a sudden your multiple could double or triple as long as you can basically articulate and demonstrate your wealth 3 years. And it's a profound concept, but it may not seem that to you, but you're a financial person. How does that resonate?
Oh, very well. I mean, I think that's what every buyer is looking for. Every not only every buyer, but every highly motivated CEO would love that.
But yeah, it's a cool distinction, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's what people either consciously or subconsciously think about, not verbally express. That's their wants, right? If you ask them to list out what they want, I think they'd spit out everything you just said.
Well, and if you think about it, what are your options? You buy an option, you buy a put or call, and you don't lose your ass. You can back a 1 in 20 success rate VC type of a company, a startup. You could buy a lottery ticket, but you don't really have, and you could try to flip houses, but I don't know any other safe and highly predictable way that you could literally double your wealth every 2 or 3 years.
No, the thing I like about that, Jay, is if I'm an entrepreneur looking at that, it allows me to be involved, right? Options and these other passive deals. I don't have any of myself, and I have less of myself in the game. But with what you're saying is I can put myself into that, and that's important to me. right? Because a lot of these entrepreneurs, yeah, you know, everybody wants to make money. That's very important. But to a lot of guys I represent, self-actualization is hugely important to them, right? How they feel about themselves, their ability to make it, the ability to succeed. That's hugely important. That's what I love about what you just said.
Well, also, and this is not an original thesis, it came from the person who sort of galloped this. He made a point really profound. There's 2 points. One, maybe it's 3. One is everybody thinks that they don't have control. There's a multiple, and that's the only multiple you could possibly get. And that's bullshit, excuse my vulgarity. And number 2 is that most of the current wealth anybody has, it originated from your business if it's financial, and you've got all this illiquid assets sitting there, and you can maximize it really just by doing things differently. It's a very interesting concept if it can be integrated and articulated right.
Jay, have you put that out there yet, or just something that
I tried it this weekend, or this week at this we had about 10 of Tony's people at another event we did, and it just killed. And everybody I've explained it to has been blown away because of its elegant simplicity.
Absolutely.
Tells me it is profound, and that it actually is the tail that wags the dog. Because if you're growing your business, if you're trying to do, hyper growth, you're growing it at 40% a year, you're doubling every, whatever, 2.5 years anyhow, and your income's greater. But what you don't realize is your wealth, if you do it not just with your existing metrics, but you shift those 3 denominators, it's pretty profound.
I love it. Thank you. I love that.
That might be a good tool for you to use too when you're getting clients, where you can get even a bigger piece of the upside. Because the guy that taught it to me, I'm getting a little tangential, but this could be an application for a lot of people. He would come in and help entrepreneurs who wanted to ready their business for sale to PE or to a strategic investor. He called it, and he registered the name, he called it value engineering. And he would basically sit down and he'd work for a year or 2, and he would get not a great fixed fee, but at the end of that period, sell or not, they would basically ascertain what it was worth, and he'd get a piece of the upside that he'd created. And he made millions of dollars. But more importantly, a bunch of these businesses, ironically, and this will not surprise you, they didn't want to go through the effort to double or redouble their wealth, so he bought the businesses.
That is amazing. Why people wouldn't want to go through that effort? Do they perceive it as risky?
It's effort. I mean, I've had, and everybody, sorry for going tangential, but I think getting into very deep dialogue is something most people don't let themselves do. It's very fascinating, and everything has relevance to everything. I mean, if you don't realize it, everything has relevance to everything. You just have to interpret what it is. I think I've had more clients, everybody, that pay me, they'll pay me 250 grand, they'll pay me 300 grand as a retainer, and they don't do anything. And they don't do anything because they're attracted to the expansive perspective, mindset, strategic, but I don't hold people's hands. They got to do it themselves. And when they're back to their status quo existence, it sort of sucks them into that linear mind. I don't know. I think effort, most people don't really, they're not willing to do effort that is outside their comfort zone, as opposed to effort that is within, if that makes sense.
Makes total sense. Yes.
So there's some filaments. Yeah. Next week I'll give you guys an like an update on what I'm doing, but I think it's a pretty cool concept. And if it resonates with you, that's a very valid.
Very much. I love it. I may come back to you on that. Thank you, Jay.
You're very welcome. Sorry for interrupting and going rogue. Go ahead, Brian. I'm liking this. This is good. And I think, by the way, I have about 100 and how many more distinctions do we have to share over the next? We probably aren't going to get to it as much as I want today, but it's okay because we got plenty of time before this ends. But we have added, besides the the 43 that we initially taught you, and I think the 35 that we added, we've gotten another, is it 100 and a quarter? How many more have we come up with,
So
Brian?
we just went over 16 last week. We've got about 4 or 5 left on that particular slide deck, and I think the next one, it has 100+ points.
Yeah. So, and again, why don't you make sure, if we've already done Tony, that you guys, I sort of like being in the shadows today. It's sort of fun. If you didn't watch it, watch it. If you watched it, watch it again, because I'm not trying to tell you that you have to do 180 different applications. What I'm trying to tell you is, if you learn optimization, highest and best use theory, you don't just pick the thing that seems interesting. You pick what is going to give you the highest and best result for your time, your effort, your opportunity, your human capital deployment, your emotional capital, financial, if you have to put financial in. And also, I recommend to most people, and probably all of you, because they don't seem like a lot of you have big infrastructures, is that you start with easy to win activities, not the ones that necessarily are going to be the most lucrative, because anytime anyone embraces something they've never done magically before, it's very much like a little or toddler learning to walk, talk, poop, eat, ride a bicycle. You're going to be terrible. So you start with things that are easier to win on, that are no-brainers, and then you move to the bigger challenges. But I'm just trying to make sure you have no excuse for not having one or many application avenues that you can use from this methodology and this training, that you can transform whatever it is, your business, your life, your career, all the above. Anyhow, get us a couple more people, Brian, excuse me.
Sure. Actually, Alon, what have you taken from this?
So I really had to think of it like a marriage, because like when we're looking for a partner, like we need to be aware who we want to stand for, and we need to be aware who the other brand ideally should stand for, so that we're compatible. And we need to do it on 2 surfaces, on 2 levels. On a superficial level, like the obvious branding, the messaging, the initial impressions, and in dating, that would be the attraction phase. But then also on a deeper level, like whether that those brand values, whether they're being lived by, whether the partner has integrity, whether I have integrity with what I want to stand for. So those are the dynamics that I'm thinking about right now.
Awesome.
That was very good. I like that one. We're going to talk in about an hour, you and I. Give me a couple more, Brian. We got a lot more people. I have perspectives.
Steve, Harsh, Teresa, let's go in that order, get you guys in. So Steve, you're up.
Thanks, Brian. I went a moment ago, and what I will, if I can add, one of the things that we've talked about within Mighty Networks over the last day, and Scott's led the discussion, is business brokering. And it feels like I think we all got excited with Jay talking about that last week. And this adds that additional Kevlar layer of add the values. And if you can help put together companies that have similar values, your brokering is just gonna, I think it would 4x, 5x, 10x it. Just rather than just putting random people who may not connect. So, yeah, thanks.
Great insight. Thank you for the ad. And Harsh, you're up.
Thank you, Brian. Well, for me, it was values all the way. I like the way branding was dimensionalized in the way of being and doing. And when it came to values, what really resonated was one of the practices that I started using when partnering with people or even forming new friendships is like spending time to get to know their values. So now that we actually emphasize that part, I think I feel validated as well as I'm wanting to continue that practice. And in the past, I've noticed some of the real estate deals that I've done, the quality of the journey is absolutely dependent on the values. So values was a big thing for me.
Cool. Very cool. Keith, you're outside. You look like you're in a nice space there, Keith.
I'm outside because there's some things going on inside, so I'm trying to hide.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
But I will double on the values thing. And the thing that I actually put into the chat was those questions that Billy brought up. You can actually ask your own clients about those 6 questions about what does this brand mean to you when you see your own brand, right? You could use that again as testimonials, but then you can use it also to rather like right now I've been casting more of a wide net, but you can use it more to narrow down who exactly you might look for with their values. So it's probably one of the things that I never thought of was matching my values to somebody else's values. Whereas I know what our values are, or I think I do, but I want to make sure, one, that they portray to the client, and 2, if I was to partner with another person, another company, another group of people, that our values do align. So that goes all the way back to the beginning, but that was one of the things. And I thought with the testimonials, you could actually create testimonials about what people think when they see your brand. So kind of intertwining a couple of different thoughts.
I like
Brian, if I just might comment on this. When you measure the different elements of the brand equity, you can correlate and conduct all of sorts of advanced statistical analysis, but we don't want to get into that. It's something that a statistician should do. But what I'm trying to say is, you can create very simple questionnaire using Google Forms. I can show you how to do it. You put in those questions, you send it to your customers, and you get input. You get all sorts of cakes. All right. So when you ask, what do you think about this brand? You'll see 15% said this, 5%. It will be, although it's quite descriptive and not correlational or causal, but it can provide a lot of insights. So it's something that I'd be more than happy to show you how to do. It's very simple.
That would be very generous. One of the things I think you should also realize that people think I'm very creative. I would say I'm not as creative as I am logical, and Billy keeps science. There's mechanisms and there are principles that drive many things that we don't really reflect on. And the more you understand what those principles are, and you harness them instead of basically letting them control you, it gets really powerful, really powerful. I have to tell somebody something for 3 minutes, Brian. So do at least 3 more people, and then I'm going to come back. I'll be right back.
Teresa, did I skip you? All right, you're up.
Great, and I'm glad that Jay took his break. First of all, only because I'm not the norm of everybody. Billy, I first want to tell you, your information is absolutely profound. And there's not anything that you have in your slides or that you said that I disagree with. I'm absolutely appalled that how well you broke it out. Just need to let you know that. As far as, so I have labeled myself as a tax strategist, but in reality, I am a business partner. But I've never gone in to take a part of the deal as a tax strategist. And when I'm looking at it, I've decided to come, we're in our golden years and I should just be enjoying grandkids, but I've decided to come back into business. And I'm a great marketer. I've followed Jay and Tony and all these guys for 40 years. But what I gleaned from this is I really am, when I come in and take on clients, so my clients stay with me for 10, 20 years as a tax strategist. But I only take a small percentage, but I'm always directing them on how to structure their business affairs and grow their business with taxation as the first focus. And I learned this from Tony Robbins 40 years ago. And what I've come to, especially with what you've laid out, Billy, is I really need to partner with these guys because I am growing their business and making sure how they grow it. They have very little tax liability because they understand how basically the tax laws and how to document it. And so from what you've presented has given me, instead of going and relaunching a whole new business, is really take my ideal clients that have been with me for 20 years, identify what I've done for them as a partner and why they stay. And it's no different than in my marriage, 44 years, and you really do this dance. You never separate and go off and do your own little thing. And that's really what I do with my partners. I am constantly growing their business with taxation first, and then because I love business. So I just wanted to, I hope that answered whatever the question was we were supposed to ask. But your work is profound, and I'm your best cheerleader.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it.
How many more have not shared, Brian?
There's a couple that I haven't been able to.
This is my favorite process, is to force people to confront what they really are thinking, and before it becomes so abstracted that it gets diffused and it vaporizes. And the more you do, the more you'll be able to build on it, and the more you'll be able to integrate it into all the things we've shared and all the things we will share. So I think this is, it's also an interesting process, and you should be very mindful, because what I'm about to say has profound repercussions and implications to anything you do. You will hear from the answers or from the insights, no two people really hear or interpret anything the same way. And in talking about alignment of values, the first thing you have to do in life, I think, interacting with anybody for any reason, particularly if you're trying to structure a meaningful relationship in the business context, is examine, explore, evaluate, appreciate, whether you like it or not, whether you agree or not, how they see life. And that could be their values, their mission, their belief system, their, how they define anything. I mean, you could say, I'm the most honorable and equitable person, but equitable is always defined by two people the same way. Win-win, win-lose, win-lose may be, and there's this book that is written, Never Split the Difference, and he's a hostage negotiator who said you should never try to get just a win-win, and he's got a rationale for it. So there's so many different realities going on all the time amongst anybody you're trying to partner with, anybody that works for you, anybody you live with, you love, your friends, your relatives, your employees, your employer. And unless you try to really understand what the dynamics are that are making that person that what it is he is or she is, you'll never be able to optimize your intention. And your intention may be economic, it may be fraternal, it may be contributional, but you really need to understand it. Let's do the rest.
John H.
I hate being put on the spot, but thank you for doing it.
Enjoy this week.
Hello?
Yeah, can you hear me? I said, did you enjoy the program you were at?
Jay, as always, it was just an overload of information. I walk out of those sessions just scratching my head, and it's just amazing. I am grateful for my ability to be there, to be present. So thank you.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. What do you think you got out of Billy today? And you could also get it out of hearing somebody's interpretation that tripped a different switch.
Today it was confirmation of values, which is something that I spend more time thinking about than I was aware of until Billy started going into it. That if I don't feel really comfortable with somebody that I'm working with or considering working with, then I just don't want to be there. And it's primarily based on their values, their morals, the values is the best overall term. And confirmation as well that appearance, both personal appearance and overall appearance, things like what your office looks like, what that conveys to a potential client or a partner in terms of the quality and value of your service and your competence. So, in a nutshell, that's.
Right, John. That's a good articulation. Okay, Brian. Anybody else or anybody else?
Yeah, let's bring up Rini.
Okay.
Hey Jay. Hey Billy. That was a great presentation. So first off, what the thing that I learned is in terms of like expanding on aligning your values with your potential partners, it kind of goes with licensing your brand to other people. So you don't want to license your brand to people that don't align with the values of your brand. So you really have to be very specific on who you license your brand name and your resources out to. And that's kind of like the direction that I'm looking at into going to other small businesses, looking at what their IPs are, what their brand value is, and kind of identifying what they can license to others. So that's kind of what I took away from that.
Okay, Brian.
Awesome. Let's bring up Rohit.
Thanks, Ryan. So for me, two things. One, everyone has touched upon, which is value, but I've got a slightly different or extended take. When I talk about value, I think about being authentic and consistent. And what I mean is, I need to know my values first. What are my genuine values? What do I really care about? I think it is, if not more, equally important when I'm looking values for my partner. So I need to be authentic. And then it's about consistency. So I have got interactions happening on multiple platforms, social media. There's so many channels. Am I being consistent in projecting that value? So that's one of the key takeaways for me. Second is premium positioning. And that for me comes from an abundant mindset. So if you're always operating from a scared mindset or scarcity mindset, you will probably pick up everything, drop your prices, just compromise on your pricing. But I think if you adopt an abundant mindset, it's a lot easier. If this thing does not work, if this does not enhance your premium positioning, go for something else, but don't dilute your brand equity. So these are the two things which I'm thinking of today.
Rohit, can you say the mindset again? I got
sorry.
What mindset?
So abundant mindset. So kind of thinking about not just relying on one deal or if it goes away, you're done.
Right.
there's always a better deal which enhances your brand equity. That's important to remember,
Right.
especially if you're trying premium position. These are the two things. Brand
And
for
I haven't heard the word authentic yet in the whole conversation. So thanks for adding that in. I think that's a great layer. So thank you for that.
So yeah, authentic and consistent. Those are the kind of key operating words for you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Sure. Let's see here. I don't believe we've called on Rona yet.
Hi. I think what I've gathered today, I'm when working on my plans, etc. I've been wanting to work with, I guess, looking for the ones that I like and want to work with, but I've limited that, not realizing that I had to start off with personal relationships, people that we know and that are other larger but successful small businesses. But now it's broadening where I can look as far as the values and all that stuff. And so I know that many people can, like someone was saying, just say the right words and basically lie about their values if they know that your values are not necessarily aligned with theirs, because theirs may not be that deeper, if you would, that deep. But I think my biggest concern, that my biggest takeaway is how you can take a look at their websites and really see and look at their track record when it comes to their customers that are happy and satisfied, and look at all of that stuff as far as what you want from finding the proper alignment, if you would. That's the basic thing. And I think some small businesses that are, don't really have that on their websites. So I think the only way to really do that is do some research and ask them specific, deep questions that I hadn't thought of before. So that's one thing that I'm going to be looking into, because that does matter to us for sure.
Very good.
Brian, can I just add one word, which I think might be valuable? There's a website. There are several websites. One of them is, for example, called brand24.com. And what you can do is you can type in the name of a brand, of a company that you want to work with, and you will get a heat map. It will give you the number of positive comments, neutral comments, and negative comments. And if you click on the positive comments or negative ones, it will take you to the website where they were written. So you can gather a 360-degree impression of your potential partner. So there are a lot of great, simple, easy to use and free tools out there. So I just felt necessary to mention that.
Good. That's very good.
Cool.
I just have one more question really quickly.
Sure.
I've seen, you have lots of small businesses that have been really successful and have done well over the years. And then more recently, someone else has bought them. So the ownership has changed. And I've seen quite a few businesses that have, over the years, their reputation has gone, I can't say gone down, but the long-standing reputation is no longer valid, for lack of a better word. Is there a way to try to avoid those missteps, if you would, as far as looking for people with values? Because again, you've had people that have built up a nice reputation over the years, and then they've sold, and now things have changed completely. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Well, the thing is that, like individuals, companies also change. And once a company has been taken over by a larger one, usually the cultural values of that bigger company overtakes and dominates. So things change. You would have to reassess your relationship with the company, because there's really no way to avoid it. It's like two partners living together for 30, 40 years, and the values change and they drift apart psychologically sometimes. So things change. It's unavoidable. We can just hope that the values are not, the gap does not become too large and it can be overcome somehow. But sometimes you just have to say, well, we've worked together for 20, 30 years. Things have changed and I have to move on, unfortunately.
Got you. Thanks.
Right.
Awesome. Let's go with Thomas next.
Yeah, I got a number of things today, and I used to back 100 salespeople. One of the things I always started with is, if you wouldn't invite them into your home for dinner with your family, don't hire them. And it's kind of the same thing with, you really do have to do a deep dive if you're going into business with somebody. So you want to look for the cohesion, the consistency, the congruency. And then, I always like to start with, start with why, which is a book I'm reading presently, which is how companies really kind of build brand loyalty by expressing first why they do what they do, and then the what, the how. And that's a question I like to ask people, and either in person or over Zoom, so I can see their body language is why? Why do you do what you do? And if people get excited, and at that time, hopefully their values will come out and really express what it is that that means something to them, why they jump out of bed, why they're so excited to get to work. And as long as it aligns with my values, then it's a great starting point.
Thomas, what I really liked about what you just said is, having dinner with someone allows you to see that person not only engaging with you, but engaging with other people, like the wait staff, and, seeing them in that context. And that kind of gets back to Vili's point of, you want to look at how your potential partner is perceived by the wider audience. So this has been eye-opening for me. The next person I'm going to call on is going to be the person behind Hauser Audio, which is what shows up on my Zoom list here.
Who is it?
I don't know. I don't have the name. It says Hauser Audio LLC. So that's how it's showing up, and I don't have my list handy, so I can't call on the name.
Are you masked man or woman?
So they're not, maybe it's taking notes. I don't know. But I'm sure there's one person I haven't called on yet that I'm positive has some amazing takeaways. So Mr. Scott Sylvan-Bell, what is one or two things that you've gotten from today?
It was interesting to see how many times value match came up to say, hey, where is the person who I'm potentially joining with, and the conversations that came from that. And then in conjunction was, having too many prices makes you seem down market, could give the appearance that you're desperate. This is my interpretation of it, not necessarily what Billy said. But, taking a look and like, what's your product mix and what you're offering versus what's your price structure. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Very good. This is excellent. This is excellent. I'll tell you what, Billy, you impressed me. I didn't know what you were going to do, but I think it has a lot of, as I said, there's a triple implication to it. And I think we have to also reconcile what our brand is supposed to stand for, no matter whether we are a business, whether we are a leader, whether we are a deal maker, whether we are an employee, employer, friend, husband, wife, parent, lover, because without definition and without clarity, you're just sort of winging it. And in the world that I've been very privileged to be introduced to, which is optimization, best and best use, you can normally achieve infinitely more than the level you're at now, but you can't if you don't understand, where you're at and how much more is possible, and then the ways to get there. I think today, because we were going to do a bunch of these new distinctions on our next session, we'll just give you another, I don't think we'll get 125, but my recommendation to you is now go back and re-review. We've given you, how many did we do last week, Brian?
We did 16.
We did 16, plus you have 78. So that's 78 and 16. Is that 94?
We're getting up close to 100 for sure.
So you're pushing 100 different ways you can apply, deploy, structure, monetize this. I'd like you to re-review them. And one of the things that I got very deep into in the last 2 days of the event we did was hitting people on the differential between event training and process training. And I explained that there's a reason that I freely gift everybody the audios, videos. Sometimes we give them the transcripts of almost everything I ever do, because I think it's arrogant and ignorant to think you could possibly possibly comprehend, master, integrate a fraction of any new knowledge, ideas, methodologies that is introduced to you. If you look at me, and just as an example, maybe it's unique, maybe it's not, I've got 50 years. We calculated it's pushing 140,000 hours, not the 10 that Malcolm Gladwell talks about. I've traveled, Lord knows how many, either many hundreds of thousands or millions of miles all over the world. I've been deep in the vortex of over 1,000 industries, worked with all these different experts, and to try to distill what I've learned and share it in these 2-hour segments, or use it catalytically to stimulate insight from people like Billy. But as you could grasp a fraction of the first viewing, there is research, and Billy might have more updated, but that at most, when you are introduced to new knowledge, and depending on how profound it is, at most you're going to retain 9%, and that presupposes it's very linear type. The more nonlinear, or at least different than your comfort zone and your experiential basis, you're going to actually retain less, because you're going to have enormous divergent thinking that's going to take you all over the place while you're there. I'll be talking and you're thinking about something I said 2, 3, 4, 10 minutes ago. You're not hearing half of what's being said, so you cut the 9 into 4.5. There's a lot of documentation of process learning being the only exponential growth mechanism you can use. And if you think about it, Billy's here, the military teaches people that way. They don't just give them a manual and a week of verbal instruction and hand them a machine gun or a grenade or a tank or a F-15 and say, go win the war. Doctors don't get Gray's Anatomy and a scalpel and a couple of weeks in the lab, and then say, hey, you're going to perform neurosurgery on a break day. Pilots don't go simulator for a week or two and then get the keys to a 777 and say you're taking 400 people from Los Angeles to New Zealand. It's a processional, constantly iterative and reviewed and updated and practiced process to gain mastery. And I want to encourage you to not think you even, I mean, if your life depended on you, and I couldn't do it, by the way, I have to use my slides. I don't think any of you could cite the 94 methodologies we've already shared. I don't think you could do half of them. I don't think you could even do a fourth of them. And I don't know that I could, but if that's the case, your commitment to greatness and success has to be tied to your commitment to rinse and repeat. Review it, reflect on it, take more time, go back and say, okay, I heard it, but I really never thought about what could that mean. If I were going to do that, not that I am, how would I do it? Who would I do it with? What would the process be? How would I use it for different kinds of deal structures, products, service companies, putting myself in the middle, or my company? And if you don't question all that, you'll never have concrete action steps. And the one thing that I fear anytime I invest my expertise in other people is that it'll be intellectual entertainment and they will end up doing little or nothing with it, which would be a travesty of the highest magnitude, because methodology in all its derivatives can propel anyone listening, watching, to whatever level of success, fulfillment, prosperity, impact, growth that you want, or none. It's yours to lose. And I think this was a profound day. Billy, you impressed me. Thank you. And thank everyone for letting me drag out of you your insights. It's a very, very therapeutic and very positive catalytic process that will help you use what you hear far more effectively and probably. Goodbye, everybody. Bye. Thanks, Brian.
Thank you, everyone. And two more things. So one, Scott has agreed to stay on with me for another 15 minutes. I am here at Abraham Worldwide headquarters and will be flying back to my local office. So Billy, I will put whatever you send me on Mighty Networks as soon as I am by a solid connection and can do that. You know, if you want, I think you have access to it. You can just put it in the chat if it's a link. Otherwise, send it to me and I'll integrate it into today's lesson, which I think is the right spot.
I'll send it to you.
Perfect.
I'll send it to you.
But
Thank
please,
you.
please give me grace to upload today's because I am traveling today.
Sure, I'll send it to you tomorrow anyway. Yeah, because it's already 9 o'clock here in Israel.
Go to
so-
bed. Don't you know, process what you're getting today before you review it again, and then we're going to see the notes later when you go to review. But we are going to stick around to try to process this and get into action. So if you want to stick around, Scott is always really good at helping us digest and take action. So I'm going to turn this over to Scott Sullivan Bell. So
Yes.
take it away, Scott.
So here's what I want everybody to think about. You know, Jay really wants to make sure that we put these items, plans into action. And so if anybody is stuck right now, like, I don't know how to put this into action, I don't know a step to take, I really want to move forward and make something meaningful, now would be the time to say, hey, look, I'm struggling. And if not, I have a backup game plan ready to go. I always work off of show notes, Brian and I do. So I'm prepared either direction. So I would really want to take this time to say, how can we help you put something into action that you heard today to help you get more deals? That is the question. So Saul put his hand up first.
Just a quick question, Scott.
Sure.
Do we have a list of all these distinctions that we've accumulated so far?
So I'm going to answer that real quick. If you go into Mighty Networks and you go into the lesson,
And
there
what is
should
Mighty
be-
Networks? I'm not familiar with it.
Okay, so
Brian, let me link to it. I'll take care of this.
Okay, cool. So that's the tool we're using to review this. So you have access to all the past videos, and underneath the video, you're going to see a link to the slides that were used in that particular one. So don't just look at the video. Look underneath it. There should be like homework assignments and things like that. So go ahead and click on that that link that Scott just shared, and I will turn it back over to you, Scott.
So if you ever go, I can't remember where Mighty Networks is, okay, I got a really cool shortcut for you. If you go to the Abraham group, and it's this yellow one right here, gold. It is the gold one, right? If you click login now, that should help you get to the Mighty Networks and help you reset the process. So that way you're never stuck saying, hey, I can't remember where Mighty Networks link is. It's right off of the Abraham group. It'll help you get there. Membership access. I put it in the chat.
Scott, is that also where we can access all the prior sessions that we missed?
Yes.
Okay.
Which are pure gold, by the way.
Yes.
Lots of content.
Thank you. Thank you.
So action. We're talking about taking action. We want to see you take action. We want to see you have some success. Is anybody stuck with a next step? Teresa, was that like, I'm stuck with the next step? Sure. Come on up.
Now, this is something that you and I talked about briefly, but I'll just say this. You know, when we bought our printing company, I had no problem knocking on doors and doing cold calls, and I built this great printing volume, and we did very well. I'm stuck with this. I mean, I have this vision of setting up a joint venture with private jet service. And it's not because I want to personally use it, but I do. But I do believe the market is huge, but nobody knows how to tap into it.
Sure.
And so how do you start with a cold call? You know, when my printing company, I knew what we could print. Sometimes we didn't know we couldn't print it, and it cost us a lot of money. But how do you start as a joint venture with something you have no experience in, but you want to learn? So I want to do a cold call on this.
You know,
We've actually looked at several private jet services. But I
you know,
only
one of the things that Billy brought up is a values match. And, you know, there are times where people want to do consulting, but the end result that I want and the end result that they want are two separate things. And I think that if you both get very clear on one, do you have the same values? And two, do you really want the same things? There's times where people say, here's what I want. And I can't get them to where they need to be because it's not proper or not possible. And so asking these questions, what are your values? What's the end result? What's the outcome? There's a lot of different ways you could ask this question. What's the outcome that we're hoping to achieve by working together? Is a really straightforward, simple question. So Teresa, go ahead.
So if it's a cold call, I have no freaking clue.
Sure.
And even who you talk to, because it's such a large company, and we've printed for large global companies,
sure.
But I have no references. So where do I
Great.
start to get some references on what they would need? Because I don't have the contact.
So you could maybe go to their website and see who's on their board of directors. You could start with their website and see if they have a marketing manager or a sales manager. Here's my favorite thing to do. If I don't know, I will randomly call somebody. I'll find a phone number. Hey, my name's Scott. Here's what I'm looking to do. Who would be the appropriate person for me to talk to? Your vision drives their decision to put you in touch with that person, whether or not they're going to make that introduction. So I might reach out and say, hey, Teresa, I see that you're the marketing manager of Private Jet Co. Here's what I'm looking to do. Who would be the appropriate person for me to talk to?
Okay, so let's I knew I had a printing company. I knew what we could print and what we couldn't print. And so I
Sure.
don't know, as a joint venturer, I know I want to do it, but I don't know how to find what they or who want, other than what I could assume. And you know what happens when we assume.
Sure. So where's the gap from what I'm saying from what you're asking?
Well, I did some research on different private jet services, but I guess I have to find out who their market is and then know how. I have no problem developing marketing programs and expanding the business. Is that where you would start?
I guess what I'm failing to understand on your end is, what are you planning on bringing to the table?
New business for time slots that they can't sell.
Okay.
So if they have an empty, what do we call it? A deadhead. Yeah. I mean, that's money just going through the roof, right? Or if any unsold seat or any unsold membership is money they're throwing away.
Sure. In manufacturing, they would refer to that as down spindle time.
Okay.
So, you know, you've got deadheads and you've got product just sitting on the tarmac or the flight line.
But so, I'm going to interrupt you for just a second. If I'm talking to a sales rep, they know diddly, in my opinion, from experience, of the bigger picture of profitability and the direction that the company wants to go, all of that. I have to take that into consideration, because the salesperson, you know, they're salaried or commission, but they probably don't know the bigger picture of what the company needs to do.
Okay. So is there an executive that is in charge of said? So like, this is true for everybody here. Okay. We're talking jets. Okay. So I'm just breaking this down for everybody so that they can take this and digest it for their service or their business. You have a person that you want to reach out to. You have an outcome that you think that you can help them achieve. Okay. You got to be able to explain that outcome in maybe 3 to 5 sentences. If you get invited to talk about more, you could probably have 10 to 20. And so who is the appropriate person for you to talk to? And in the chat, Matthew said there's a lot of partnership managers. So you would go through and look at the management list and see who's the person that I can talk to. Now, sometimes you don't know, and this is where the script comes in. Like, I don't know if you're the right person or not. Here's what I'm looking to achieve. Who would be the appropriate person for me to talk to? Now, we're all going to hit some sort of gatekeepers, and there might be a couple of phone calls that you got to make. There's a lot of different ways. My personality is going to be a little bit different than everybody else's. So my version of this may be a little bit different than yours. And so here's what we need to remember is someone like the threat to them is if I'm wrong, I'm putting my relational capital on the table, right? If I'm wrong, I'm vouching for you by connecting you with said manager or said executive. Like they have capital risk inside of their business. So just remember that like sometimes it's going to say, hey, look, I know you don't know who I am, but here's what I'm trying to achieve. Here's what I would love to see. Here's my vision. How can we connect to make that happen?
And Billy, with your skills and background, would you do a bunch of research based on all the slides that you covered before you even get started to get an idea of the culture or the goals of the company in order to be able to do this align? You know, those are just, you brought a lot of new viewpoints that I never thought, like I could go in and look at the positive and the negative that people that use them. That would be very valuable for me to come back, forget the salesperson, and I could go up to the next level because I know what your problem is. You guys may not know, but look at this. Here's how a joint venture could solve it.
I'm gonna steal your thunder a little bit, Billy, and then I'm gonna turn it back over to you. But Scott has gotten me to call him before we knew each other. So
okay.
He interacted with me and he kind of liked a couple of my posts in social media. And then he sent me this package from freaking Hawaii with chocolate covered macadamia nuts, coffee. And so he wanted to call me, but I called him because he sent me a package. So Billy is talking about build your brand so that people want to reach out to you. When you do this right, you don't have to do cold calls. You don't have to do outreach. The person you want to talk to will reach out to you because you are so on their radar. They're like, who is this person? They commented on my team's LinkedIn post. They talked about my book that I wrote. They hosted my son's soccer league. So like how many different ways can you get on that person's radar? And each time you do that, it raises your status. And by raising your status, like Billy said, people have this concern that by associating with you, they're going to lower their brand identity or brand status. But if you're coming to them from this position of, I'm an elevator, I'm lifting you up on social media, I'm promoting your book, I'm hyping the people that are on your team, I'm sending you this unique package that you've never gotten before. So I stand out as a human being because I care about you. I send you this crazy thing from Hawaii. I'm going to make that call because I want people like that in my life. Over to you, Billy.
So it's a really interesting point, but first I'll answer your question, Teresa. Generally speaking, there are two types of research that we should conduct. It could be simultaneously, all right? There's what we call primary research, where you go and ask questions from prospects, you hand out a questionnaire, right? You analyze it, etc. And then there's what is called secondary research, and that's where you go to different sources and try to find out what's out there. Okay, like the Facebook page, the website, etc., etc. So I would do both things simultaneously. Now we must remember that the purpose of research is to decrease risk. The more knowledge you will have from the primary research that you've conducted, from the secondary research that you've conducted, the lower the risk and the greater the confidence that this relationship is going to work. Now, regarding what you said, Brian, it's a really interesting point. One of the things that we must remember is that we have to be in the consumer's consideration set. We must remember that the competition is huge. Now, when somebody wants to choose a product, a hamburger, a service provider, if you're not in the consideration set, if you're not the 5 service providers that comes to mind, you're not even going to be considered. Okay, that's why we always have to advertise, by the way. You always have to be there on LinkedIn and on Facebook, and once a week have newsletters so that people don't forget about you. And when the time comes, they know that Teresa is one of the 5 people that I'm going to take into consideration. So I'm going to call her, I'm going to call Alan, I'm going to call John, and whoever makes the best offer, or the one that I can connect to more on the brand level, all right, emotionally, I will hire. All right. So you always have to be there, because if you're not there, you will not be on the consideration set, and you will not be even considered. It's easy to forget about service providers and products. By the way, one of the reasons why food chains have advertisements saying, like, you know, when you drive down the highway, are you hungry? McDonald's, this and that, because they know that if it's lunchtime and you're thinking about eating somewhere, you will take into consideration McDonald's, because it's very easy to forget about them for a minute when you came across Wendy's or you came across any other brand. All right. So it's really interesting point, Brian.
Awesome.
And I hope I answered your question, Teresa.
No, it was good.
Yeah.
And Scott, can you wrap us up for the day with some concluding thoughts?
Yeah. So, you know, here's
Really, yes, you did. I'm having a technical problem here, but extraordinary answer. Thank you.
When you take a look at what we do, everybody looks for reasons why we can't do it, right? Like the greatest thing that we have is our competition goes, here's all the reasons why I can't. I tend to believe that imperfect action with good intent is better than no action at all. And so we all have companies, services, providers, people that we can reach out to. But here's the thing, we're all human beings. I can get past any gatekeeper for about $100 US, right? Outside of the US, probably not, because you got to pay the value tax. In your town, in your city, in your jurisdiction, you have something cool that tourists buy. I tend to spend a lot of time in Hawaii for 3 boxes of macadamia nuts, a bag of coffee, and a couple trinkets of candy. Whatever I send will get through a gatekeeper no matter what. And all it takes is a thank you card, or in Hawaiian, a mahalo card, all in $70 to $100. If I really want to send the big box, it's $120. So I would challenge, if you understand the allowable cost or whatever your marketing cost is to get to the person that you want to talk to, you will get a response. I have sent 120 boxes, and out of 120 boxes, I've got 119 responses. So we're all human beings. Somebody wants to know, hey, you're thinking about me, you're paying attention to me. What do you have in your area, in your town, in your jurisdiction, that if you really needed to get this message to the deal maker? What is that book, Message to Garcia? How do you reach the person that you need to talk to? And so here's the thing, connect with people, send them a message. I really appreciate what you have. Write a book review for something they've done. Leave a message on their post. You know, there's a lot of ways that people are like, hey, I'm a valid human being. Thank you for validating me.
Yeah. So with that, I know that we are well over 15 minutes over time. I appreciate all of you. And just so you know, not only am I excited about this thing that I just came through, but I started working on our next Scott and I deep dive session that we're going to have here in August. And we are putting together a powerful slide deck. So not only do you get Jay for 13 weeks, but once a month, Scott and I kind of get together and say, okay, how do we really actualize all this information and put it into practice? We allow space without the pressure of kind of that Jay spotlight for you to unpack this stuff and explore it and play with it. So I am excited for our session coming up, and we're gonna announce that date shortly when we get our calendars together and I get back on the ground next to my calendar. But I want to thank all of you for showing up, because to do a deal, you need to show up for it. Not only do you need to start it, but you need to sustain it. And the way that you are in the middle of this program, and by being here today, you are a sustainer. And that is what you want in a partner. Ask your partners what program they have completed, because if they have completed and taken action on a program, then they can do it again with you. So maybe invite them to a program like this so that you can watch them go through it and learn with you and take action on it. Because when people complete things, you know that they can complete a project with you. And Jay often turns down opportunities for one reason. They stop showing up. They stop putting in the effort. They stop doing the things. So keep showing up, keep engaging, and that is the heart of a deal maker. So with that, I'm going to leave you all and let you go on to your next big thing. I appreciate you all. Keep showing up. We'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Thank you.